Hey everyone, welcome back to FT News. I'm Myra. And Drake just did something that feels completely insane even by Drake standards. After weeks of cryptic live streams, frozen all logos, mysterious Toronto marketing stunts, leaked diss tracks, and non-stop online speculation, Drake finally dropped ICEMAN. But then, at the very last second, he shocked everybody by revealing he wasn't dropping one album. He was dropping 3. ICEMAN, Habibti, and Maid of Honour. 43 songs. 3 different sounds. 3 completely different moods. And honestly, listening to all 3 back-to-back feels like entering Drake's brain during the weirdest week of his life. Because one minute he sounds locked in, aggressive, focused, and hungry again. And the next minute, he sounds like a sleep-deprived billionaire texting women at 4 a.m. while floating through Ibiza on painkillers and hookah smoke. This entire release feels chaotic, but at the same time, weirdly fascinating. So let's break this down album by album, starting with the clear centerpiece of the entire drop, ICEMAN. Out of the 3 projects, ICEMAN easily feels like the most complete and focused album. This is Drake in revenge mode. The production is darker, colder, more aggressive, and much more rap-heavy than people expected. And from the very beginning, it's obvious Drake is still obsessed with everything that happened after the Kendrick Lamar beef. You can hear it all over this album. The paranoia, the ego, the bitterness, the need to prove himself again. Tracks like What Did I Miss and Too Hard for the Radio sound like Drake trying to remind the world that he can still rap at an elite level when he actually wants to. And honestly, there are moments here where he absolutely delivers. The flows are sharp. The beat switches are nasty. And the energy feels way more alive than some of his recent projects. Plot Twist especially sounds like Drake having fun again. He keeps switching cadences, changing tones mid-verse, sliding between lazy confidence and straight-up venom. It's one of those tracks where he sounds fully engaged instead of just coasting. And production-wise, ICEMAN might genuinely contain some of the best beats Drake has rapped over in years. There's a heavy mix of moody Toronto atmosphere, Atlanta trap influence, West Coast bounce, soul samples, and these weird, almost futuristic synth textures layered throughout the project. The album constantly shifts styles without fully losing its identity. And that's actually impressive considering how long it is. Now, does every experiment work? Absolutely not. Some tracks feel bloated. A few songs sound unfinished. And occasionally Drake falls back into the same recycled themes he's been rapping about for nearly a decade now. Money, betrayal, women, fake friends, enemies, success, people switching sides. At this point, Drake has probably made enough music about people changing to fill an entire psychology textbook. But even with those flaws, ICEMAN still feels like the strongest version of Drake we've gotten in a while. Because underneath all the ego and sneak disses, there are moments where he actually sounds human again. There's exhaustion in his voice sometimes, paranoia, loneliness, pressure. And weirdly enough, that vulnerability gives the album its best moments. Now let's talk about the most controversial part of this entire release night, Habibti. This album feels like Drake disappearing into a luxury nightclub somewhere at 3:30 in the morning and refusing to come home. The vibe is extremely slow, atmospheric, hypnotic, and R&B heavy. There are moments that genuinely sound beautiful. The transitions are smooth. The synth work is great. And songs like WNBA and Classic actually create a really immersive late-night atmosphere. But the problem is, Drake barely evolves the sound across the album. By the middle section, everything starts blending together. Same moods, same vocal approach, same sleepy energy. It almost feels like one giant continuous haze instead of an album with clear progression. And honestly, Drake sounds half awake on some tracks. There are moments where it feels less like he's performing songs and more like he's mumbling expensive relationship problems directly into a luxury microphone. That said, I still think Habibti is being overhated right now. Because buried underneath the repetitive structure, there's actually some really addictive production here. This is one of those albums that probably works way better in specific settings. Late night drives, headphones, rainy weather, dim lighting. It's not an album built around massive hooks or giant rap moments. It's more about atmosphere. And while it definitely drags at times, I can still see certain songs growing on people over time. Now, unfortunately, we need to talk about Maid of Honour. Because wow, this album feels like Drake completely losing control of the experiment. Maid of Honour is easily the weirdest and messiest project out of the three. It jumps between house music, dancehall, club music, weird internet humor, toxic relationship lyrics, distorted production choices, awkward features, and some absolutely bizarre songwriting decisions. There are moments where it genuinely sounds unfinished. And some tracks honestly feel like demos that somehow accidentally got uploaded to streaming services. The biggest issue is consistency. The album constantly feels like it's fighting itself. 1 minute Drake is trying to make a vibey dance track. The next minute he's doing awkward horny comedy bars over strange experimental beats that don't fully connect. Then suddenly Sexy Red appears screaming something insane before the song collapses into chaos. It's honestly kind of unbelievable at points. Now, to be fair, there are a few tracks here that work. Road Trips actually has a pretty catchy emotional vibe. Which One with Central C has energy. Amazing Shape has some cool production ideas. But overall, this album feels like Drake throwing every unfinished experimental idea into one playlist and hoping something sticks. And unfortunately, a lot of it doesn't. Still, what makes this triple release interesting is that it reveals 3 completely different versions of Drake at the same time. ICEMAN is Drake the rapper. Habibti is Drake the late-night R&B artist. Maid of Honour is Drake the chaotic experimental pop star trying absolutely everything. And honestly, that ambition alone deserves some credit. Because even when these albums fail, they fail in strange and memorable ways. Nothing here feels safe. Messy? Yes. Overlong? Definitely. Confusing? Absolutely. But boring? Not really. And that's why this entire release feels so fascinating. It's like Drake is trying to respond to every criticism he's received over the past few years all at once. People wanted more rapping? ICEMAN gives them that. People wanted vibes? Habibti exists entirely for vibes. People wanted experimentation? Maid of Honour practically melts into experimental chaos halfway through. The problem is, dropping all 3 at the same time also exposes Drake's biggest weakness right now: editing himself. Because there's probably one incredible album hidden somewhere across these 3 projects. But instead of trimming the filler, focusing the themes, and sharpening the best material, Drake released everything. And listening to all of it feels exhausting by the end. Still, I can't lie. There are songs from these albums that are absolutely going to dominate playlists for months. ICEMAN especially feels built for replay value. The aggression, the beat switches, the sneak disses, the cold production, that album is clearly going to drive conversation for a long time. And with Drake taking shots at Kendrick, LeBron, Rick Ross, and others throughout these songs, the internet discourse is about to become completely unbearable for the next few weeks. Overall, I'd probably rate the projects like this. ICEMAN 8 out of 10. Strong production, focused energy, some excellent rap performances, but definitely too long. Habibti 6. 5 out of 10. Atmospheric and vibey, but repetitive and emotionally distant at times. Maid of Honour 4. 5 out of 10. Creative in places, but wildly inconsistent, and honestly hard to sit through in full. As a complete triple album experience, it's ambitious, frustrating, overstuffed, addictive, and one of the weirdest major rap releases in years. Only Drake could drop 3 albums in one night and somehow make the entire internet simultaneously impressed, confused, entertained, exhausted, angry, and obsessed all at the same time. This is Myra from FT News, signing off.